I am Tim Powers. I am Chief Executive Officer of Humboldt General Hospital in Winnemucca, Nevada. You know, I began there January of 2020 as interim Chief Financial Officer. The hospital had just gone through a really challenging electronic medical record conversion to Cerner's Community Work, something I was intimately familiar with from my previous hospital in South Central Idaho. And in August of that year, I was approached and asked to take on the full-time CEO role at the hospital, which I accepted. I've been in the CEO position, my last two facilities, for about 12 years. The interesting thing about Humboldt and the community down there, over the course of, I would say, probably 10 or 15 years, my predecessors convinced the board that it was not possible to recruit community-based providers, in this case, primarily specialists, into that part of northern Nevada. And my experience from my 10 or 11 years at Gooding, Idaho, was nonsense. What you had to do was, find a recruiting company that specialized in really placing providers, doctors, in areas where, they specifically want to be. Northern Nevada is an interesting place. It's about 2.5 hours from Lake Tahoe, probably about 5.5, 6 hours from Sun Valley. And if you're a skier, if you're an outdoorsman, if you're into mountain biking, if you're into rock climbing, if you're into the great outdoors, Winnemucca, Nevada is a perfect place for you to settle down, practice medicine. Our hospital is a state-of-the-art facility, and it's a fabulous place to raise children as well. So trying to convince our board that, yeah, it was possible to do this was a challenge, but we moved forward. And the other complicating fact was the hospital had entered into contracts with provider groups that had placed general surgeons, hospitalists, and orthopedic surgeons there. So they didn't have that real sense of community. They really didn't have that sense of equity in the organization, and there was constant, somewhat of a turnover in those areas. So having our own community-based providers was really, really important to me, and ultimately really, really important to our hospital and community. I think it was half recruiting related and half convincing the board that it could be done. So I think I had two challenges there: finding the right recruiting group that could satisfy what we were looking for, and then really convincing the board that the doctors we were bringing in were of the highest quality. So it was twofold. These contracts, whoever negotiated these contracts in the past left a lot of money on the table. So just from a revenue point of view, just from a leakage point of view, we had tons of, particular, I'll use our orthopedic service line. We did some research on how much of that business we were capturing in our primary and secondary service areas. And we were only capturing 17% of that, which meant 83% was traveling to Boise, Salt Lake, Reno, and other locations. And that's when you're really trying to create in my case, I was trying to create a center of excellence for orthopedic surgery in Winnemucca. And to have that type of leakage happening, that was impossible to do. So, even informing the community that we had, even through these contracts, we had really high quality surgeons that were part of that program. But there's just a disconnect in a lot of these smaller areas with being able to provide the input to the community that this service line was ready, willing, and available at our hospital. And there was really a void up until, when we started to make some significant changes in our ability to get that point across and really advertise our service line and get the word out that that was being performed in Winnemucca. I had used other physician recruiting companies in the past and was somewhat successful with those relationships when I was up in Gooding. However, the Winnemucca market posed a different type of challenge, and I think it needed a different type of approach and a different type of physician recruiter. And we started searching for that particular type of relationship and that particular type of expertise. And with Jeremy's firm, I think we found that. Actually, I know we found that. Again, I get back to the difficulties of the Winnemucca market and the challenges associated with it. I will say housing is a huge problem in the Winnemucca area. It's primarily a mining community, and with the mining community the way it is and being as robust as it is in that area, the housing market prices have been driven up. The availability of good housing is really, really difficult to come by, and that element alone creates a different type of solution in finding qualified candidates to move to that area. That's an element that I did not have in any of my recruiting efforts in Gooding, and it really posed an enormous challenge for us to go to market with some of the relationships I had with previous recruiting firms. And that's why I really felt that trying to find and create a relationship with a resource out there that really understood kind of these obstacles that I was facing, Humboldt General and in the Winnemucca community and specifically, that I really needed to find somebody I could partner with that really felt that they were optimistic of being able to provide someone. A lot of these recruiting firms, it's the path of least resistance, and it becomes a number game. And by meeting Jeremy and in my initial conversation subsequent to that, I really felt that he was passionate about what he was doing. He was unique in really understanding the specifics of what it was going to take to find a high quality, in my case, a high quality orthopedic surgeon that was excited about coming to our community and working at our hospital. And that was very different than the challenges that presented themselves in previous relationships with recruiters. It's always kind of a tough thing to part with cash when you really haven't have a track record with utilizing someone. I did get feedback from other people at our hospital who had interacted with Jeremy, and they were satisfied with their ongoing relationship there. I really think that again, this business is unique, and there is a lot of effort that needs to be expended and resources that need to be expended in sourcing these types of specialists. And after really talking it over with Jeremy and understanding his approach and the necessity to front end cash on these types of searches, I was quite comfortable with it after I had that discussion with him, and it was not a problem. I really kind of threw all my eggs in one basket. I didn't go after anybody else, and I really, whether it was documented in our agreement or not, it was an exclusive for Jeremy. And I knew I had a lot of needs to fill. I mean, I was on a mission to flip out all of these contracts and replace them with community-based employed HGH physicians. And I knew if Jeremy could pull this orthopedic search off and bring in a superstar, that we were going to have a long and very prosperous and very enjoyable relationship. So yeah, I kind of took a risk, but I felt it was a risk worth taking. You know, after doing whatever due diligence I could on his capabilities and his expertise, it was definitely the right decision. You know, the fact that I was able to have an interactive conversation with candidates that he was sourcing that he thought met the mustard that we were looking for seemed different than relationships I had with other recruiters in the past. In the past, it was more, they're kind of hands off with having the client, in this case me, really interacting early on with candidates that are being sourced and being vetted. And having that ability early on to really start developing relationships with these providers, to me, was very unique and really something that I love doing. So that was a little different than I had experienced in the past. You know, I think in terms of how Jeremy was better than other recruiters in the past, I think his ability to stay in touch and really keep me apprised of developments in his search process and really start understanding the nuances of what he was doing and where he was looking and where he was finding these people. Just that staying in touch is a huge element of keeping that relationship fresh and really making me feel quite comfortable with what he was doing out there. It's a big change for what we were doing. I'd already given the incumbent contracting group notice that they were gone by the end of the year. And we had 6 months to really bring in a high quality provider. So, you know, making certain that that the lines of communication were always open, that this communication was happening on a very often basis. I mean, Jeremy and I were talking quite a bit, quite often, and really getting updates on how his progress was proceeding. So the sense of urgency that I was having translated really well into the sense of urgency that he was feeling too. But that ability to stay in communication with one another was really, really important. Oh boy, PX3 hit a home run. When Jeremy called me up representing the firm and said he had found an individual whose favorite 2 places on the face of the earth happened to be within driving distance of Winnemucca, all I had was a huge grin on my face and could not wait to really have in-depth conversations with this candidate. PX3 essentially took the conversations that I had with them in terms of characteristics, personalities, specifics I was looking for in a really high quality orthopedic surgeon, and delivered to me the trifecta. And by the trifecta, Dr. Meter is board certified in trauma, spine, and general orthopedics. And on a hospital staff in a frontier community like Humboldt is, those 3 specialties are huge wins for our community. Again, I get back to the things I was talking about before. There's a lot of rock climbing, there's a lot of hiking, a lot of mountain biking. We do have people who suffer some catastrophic orthopedic injuries, and to have a high quality board certified orthopedic surgeon such as Dr. Meter to be able to treat those patients obviates, in a lot of cases, the fact that we have to transfer those patients to other levels of service, to other hospitals. So that is a huge win for our community and for our hospital. Keeping those patients that have those types of maladies at home and right there in our community, it was just a fabulous win for us. And PX3 didn't disappoint me at all. They were very personable and really at heart and seriously the elements that I was looking for in a specialist in our community, and the interaction that I had with that firm. PX3 was nothing short of both professional and personable. And that to me, if you can have those two elements combined together, you got a winning solution. So that I can chat about on the service with PX3, a couple of things really. One is the constant communication and updates on where they were in the search process. And the second thing, quite frankly, was their honesty. You know, knowing on the front end, all searches have a particular uniqueness to them, and there was a uniqueness to ours as well. In the case of Jeremy Foley, who I worked directly with, he was quite frank about the ability to find really high qualified individuals. And the thing that I was really blown away by was the compensation side of the world. I remember on the interview process early on, which really helped me understand kind of the obstacles that PX3 would be looking at. The market demands on compensation have significantly changed since I last recruited orthopedic surgeons. So that was a surprise. So really having those kind of conversations early on really set the tone and really set the, my understanding of what the experience was going to be like moving forward. So their frankness, their honesty, their candor was a really refreshing change of pace for me. Additional benefits on our relationship with PX3, again, we've got a number of providers that we need to flip over the next couple of years. General surgeons as well, sourcing an additional orthopedic surgeon. I'm looking to get into other service lines in our organization. Free's ability to be nimble and to really be able to go out and source any type of specialist is important to me. I'll tell you, for instance, there's a personal story. I've had cancer and I've had to travel for chemo. And I understand how debilitating and difficult it is to travel long distance for 6 months worth of medical oncology. And I am convinced that, well, I know through statistics that our community has got huge cancer issues. And to be able to provide that service at our hospital, on our campus, is something that I've got a real passion about. And to be able to really source oncologists or hematologists is really, really difficult. And retaining these people is very, very difficult. And I have no doubts that PX3, through my experiences that I've had already, through our ongoing conversations about sourcing additional specialists, if I toss that over the fence to them, I have no doubt they would find me the highest quality oncologist or hematologist that's out there. And that ability to really have a comfort level with a provider recruiting firm gives me that sense of ease, if you will, on our future recruiting needs. And they're the go-to. And to be able to have a go-to relationship with a firm like PX3 is a huge relief for a CEO at a hospital such as Humboldt is. I think one of the things that separates PX3 from other physician recruiting firms is the fact that they didn't source the provider, got onboarded them, got their last check and disappeared. So having those ongoing conversations, retaining that personable relationship between hospital and PX3 has been a huge difference in my experience, than other recruiting firms. In a lot of cases in my past, yeah, I developed relationships with physician recruiters, but once the deal had been done, they kind of went dark on me. And whether I had any future recruiting needs or not, PX3 has always been communicating with me, reaching out to other members of my senior leadership. And I really appreciate that, because situations at hospitals change. They can change quickly. And to be able to make a phone call and know that that relationship is still intact, those lines of communications are still open, relieves a lot of stress at my level. The one thing that as I look back on this particular recruiting opportunity that, maybe we could have done differently is cram down the compensation side of the world. But that is not really a fair criticism, because at the end of the day, what I was delivered, what my community was delivered, was a fabulous individual that is the highest quality, skilled orthopedic surgeon I've ever been around. So to look at really cramming down compensation on providers is probably an unfair expectation, but if I'm looking for a criticism, that's where I'm going. I'd say why didn't you call them earlier? I would say, don't waste your time on other relationships you may have had in the past, on other recruiting firms you may have used. If you want a relationship with someone, with an organization that really embraces and really has passion about your community and what your needs are, PX3 is that organization to reach out to. They have a personal touch that is unique, and they will deliver the goods. I think that one of the byproducts of this whole process has just been a developing a real friendship with a particular recruiter that we used, or I used, Jeremy. And that, being able to have a conversation about things other than hospital work and recruiting for physicians and healthcare in general, to me, is what this relationship is all about. And, I've really benefited personally from my interaction with the folks at PX3, and specifically Jeremy. And I really feel like I can call him a friend, and hopefully he feels the same way about me. So the professional relationship kind of, is more expansive than that into a personal relationship. And that's the kind of guy I am. You feel good about your interactions with someone. Developing a more personable relationship and friendship is inevitable. And I think that's what has occurred here. And I'm really thankful that I've gotten to know Jeremy, and I've gotten to know PX3. They've been a fabulous resource and just a really fun relationship.